Well, welcome back to Cool Conversations. We're still on location in the French Alps. It's a bit bright out there today, but that's the view right now. Super pumped. We have on the show today somebody who, he's a climber, he's a mountaineer, he's an international mountain guide. He's one of the best photographers I've had the pleasure of working with. He's the founder of Fisher Creative, his own small, well, not that small even, amazing, video production company. But more than that, he is one of the really great guys out there, constantly smiling, always happy, always on the search of the ultimate fun hit. He is none other than the award-winning photographer, Mark Fisher. Mark, how you doing?
There you go, Kenton. Thanks for the illustrious intro. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's great to be here with cool conversations with you, buddy.
So, buddy, you're in a hotel room in Scotland. Just tell us what's going down in Scotland.
Yeah, so we're in Oban, Scotland right now, and flew over here a couple days ago. We're literally on a wild goose chase of sorts at the moment in Scotland. We're defending for ourselves as the only Americans in the country, and yeah, we're in Oban, and we're working on a TV show. Kind of think Anthony Bourdain meets Meat Hunter, a mix between Scottish hunting traditions and culinary. We've partnered with a chef out of southern UK, right next to you. We're actually right where the theater is in Cirencester. This guy Mike Robinson.
It's Cirencester.
Cirencester. How am I supposed to
Oh, we're losing you, Mark.
pronounce?
Oh, well, here we go. So this is a slight issue that we have when we go in going rogue. You, Mark, speak to me. Oh no.
Oh. It's not the same age, but see home. Scheisse. It says we'll give it a second here.
Oh, you're back. You're back.
I'm back. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks everyone. There might be a glitch or two here and there, but no. So we're working with this guy Mike Robinson, who is a chef
from Cirencester.
From Cirencester, yeah. And wait, was it Cirencester or Cirencester? Cirencester.
It's Cirencester.
Cirencester, great, yeah.
It's Leicester, not Leicester. All right, cool.
Yeah.
So, I mean, let's just take it back a little while. I mean, some of our viewers might not know quite how legendary Mark Fisher is. We both met for the first time in Bhutan back in 2015, and you were shooting alongside your right-hand man Ed or Eric. And we were both working on a project out in Bhutan. So just fill me in how that came onto your radar.
Yeah, so it was 2015, and a mutual friend of Kenton and I's, Michael Barth, sort of randomly connected us before the trip. But we ended up, I got an email saying, "Hey, Mark, what do you think about going to Bhutan for an exclusive 2-week tour with the Prince to all these areas that are off limits to normal tourists, normal foreigners, and what do you think about going to Bhutan for 2 weeks and making basically a home video photo collection for these high-end clients?" And of course I'm like, Bhutan, let's go. So we went, and that was spring of 2015.
Yeah, 2015. It was the year of the Everest Nepal earthquake. Because I remember transiting through Kathmandu about a week before that earthquake hit. So yeah, it's 2015, and it was a great trip. But that's the first time that I'd heard the term "drink it blue."
Oh yeah, we had some shit weather for sure, and the whole trip was a little bit of. I mean. The trip was epic. I mean, it's we're not joking when it's like we literally flew around Bhutan in B-3 helicopters with the Prince, a royal entourage, and went to the most amazing locations like Tiger's Nest and Royal Manus National Park and all these incredible locations. And what was that remote village we went to where it was just pouring rain every day?
That's where we drunk it blue. That was Lyre.
Yeah.
Lyre? I think it was Lyre. Yeah, so Lyre's in the far east of Bhutan. It took us about an hour to get there by helicopter, and then when we got there, only half the team could get in. I can't remember. Did you were in with us, weren't you?
Yeah, we were in.
And then it sucked in with rain for about 48 hours. We couldn't fly the Prince in. We couldn't fly half the guests in. And you came up with the term and said, wow, there's nothing left to do. We just got to drink it blue. And we all got drunk. Woke up the next morning and it was Bluebird.
Exactly. Drink it blue. Off that terrible malt liquor. You know, they have that. Remember that stuff? What was it? It was like the Druk 11,000.
Something like that.
It's like Druk 11,000. It's like 10% alcohol. And then what I learned in Bhutan is all the locals, they prefer the malt liquor because you get the most bang for your buck when you got to carry it in on your own back. But it's just awful. And of course, it's warm. There's no refrigeration. I mean, this village didn't have any power. And so
it had power because that's one of the remarkable things about Bhutan. So K5, so the fifth king, as they call it, he's put power in everywhere. You don't remember the power lines coming across because everybody's got power. That's one of the amazing things with Bhutan. Everybody's got power. Everybody's got cell phone, but they don't necessarily have everything that goes with power.
Exactly.
So certainly in our camp, we didn't have, because we were camping and we had those, got to be a little bit careful that we don't get sued or something. But the guy we were working with was a little bit loose with some of the organization. And remember we had those wood burning stoves inside the tents, which hadn't been cured. And they basically gassed all the guests. It was a little bit...
brand new wall tents with the brand new stoves that didn't...
That was a really stressful trip. Really stressful. Because the organization, I mean, it's good learning because the organization was so poor that we were having to, firefight daily. And of course, we got to get anyway. But
luckily for you, you were the guide of honor, so you got a seat at the royal table.
Oh yeah.
Whereas Ed and I were often left feeding scraps in the kitchen with the crew.
And then, I remember the time we're down in Manus and we went on an elephant ride.
We got left. Ed and I ended up in India.
You got completely left, got lost, and illegally entered India.
Yeah, we definitely crossed into India as we were just fending for ourselves through the. Yeah, that was really how that trip went. There was there was the guests and Kenton staying at like the Amangani resorts and fine dining, and Ed and I were a little bit we were the help. Yeah.
No, but it was good fun, and it started what has turned out to be a relatively a bit noisy. There's a light aircraft going overhead. Have you still got your plane?
I've still got the plane. Yeah.
But although it's a fairly fast and loose trip to Bhutan, it did start what's become quite a meaningful relationship. Well, I like to think a meaningful relationship between yourself and Ed and also the families. Because we came across to you guys last year and we spent an epic couple of weeks hanging out with you at home. And where you live is something quite special, isn't it? Because you've got this beautiful cabin. Well, you can take up the slack. You've got this beautiful cabin in Idaho, and that's kind of the headquarters of Fisher Creative in a way.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, like you said, Ken. I mean, that 2015 trip kicked off, what I would consider just a legendary friendship with you and our families, and also just legendary adventures. And it's been incredible. And like you said, Ken, I mean, the family came over last year, and Fisher Creative's based in Victor, Idaho, which is sort of the ugly stepchild of Jackson, Wyoming. And, we're right on the edge of Teton Pass, and, it's getting quite popular, but, we're like the Idaho side, but it's both Eric and I have lived there for 20 years. And, like Ken said, now it's, the family came and stayed at, I've got this gorgeous sort of straw bale log cabin. It's on about 80 hectares of farmland bordering wilderness area. And it's off the grid. And so, it's a pretty idyllic little place. Right now, the raspberries are going off. The garden's going off. It's actually quite hard to leave.
Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, we came and stayed for 2 weeks. We completely took over. I've got to say thank you. We completely took over. You went out to your little trailer and were living in a trailer, and Team Cool essentially took over your cabin. And it is off grid, isn't it? You've got a little generator if you need it. You've got the wood burning stove. The views are to die for. And I think for us collectively, especially the children, they kind of realize that you don't actually need that much to be content and to be happy, because they were probably as happy there as anywhere on that trip, as we did the big road trip and we're camping and we stayed at friends' places. But that was the highlight of the trip for us. I think that was down to the ethos of you and Ed and also your friends there in Victor. It's an amazing community there.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you see that, because it is cool and it is part of that. The cabin is 600 square feet. It's completely off the grid. I have two small children that live there with me. They're 5 and 8. And it's true, it's like you don't need that much. It's entirely off the grid. It's like camping. I call it glamping. It's sort of, it's a wood stove. The kitchen's tiny. But now, and you should see it now, Kenton, I've got literally this summer, I've got a trampoline now. I've got a slack line. I put up like a 30-meter zip line in the trees.
Oh, wow. And, cool.
It's quite the play paradise. But no, we sit back and the coyotes are howling every night and the moon and a big campfire. And no, it's really quite lovely. Yeah, it's a good spot.
And then in Victor yourself, you have the hub that is Fisher Creative.
Yeah, exactly.
And Fisher Creative, what are you now? I'm going to get this wrong, so forgive me. 6 years old, 7 years old?
Oh, no, more like, Fisher Creative's 10 years old, or coming up on 10 years.
Wow.
Before that, Mark Fisher Photography. But yeah, no, it's been full time since 2006. Wow, and then we just launched our new studio in downtown Victor, which you got to check out. It's insane. And right on Main Street, bought a building. It's a 2-story building with a basement, and it's sandwiched in between the best Thai restaurant in town. and then on the other side is a liquor store. And then right below the studio is the bike shop. So kind of the 3 things you need most, mountain biking, Thai food and booze. So it's it's
an ideal recipe not to get any work done. But
exactly.
I mean,
the studio is insane. And so we got, I got special permission from the city, and now we're literally on Main Street, and huge deck off the front, indoor, outdoor living space, big triple slide window. We've got 5 full-time people now working at Fisher Creative, which is exciting. And it's just cool to really, push the vision of what, trying to do with Fisher Creative over the years and take it to the next level. And now really have a space that, you can come stay at it. It's got a full shower in the space. It's kind of built for entertaining. It's built for creative, collaborative work. It's built for, having, I'm going to start doing like monthly events with creatives in the community, artists, musicians, kind of just get-togethers, kind of monthly events, but it's been, it's all the COVID sort of slowed that down with music and gatherings but it feels really cool to have that finished. And I think it's cool for me as well, because we have been in Victor for so long, to really have the opportunity to make a mark on the town and say, no, if we're going to invest in the community and be part of the community, to make something that's an enhancement or extension of the community, and not just do things the same way. So it's cool. Yeah, you got to check it out. It's great.
Yeah. And has that always been the vision? Because, I mean, I know you pretty well, and you are a guy that has like an all-inclusive, trying best way to put it. I mean, you're so in tune with everything that is creative. It's not just camera work and photography. I mean, I know you're into your music, you're into your art to a certain extent, you're into biking, climbing. You seem to be able to touch so many different aspects of creativity and then draw it together. And it sounds like that's exactly what you've created these days with Fisher Creative. So I suppose a question I'm trying to put out, where you are now with Fisher Creative, was that always your goal, or has that morphed over time?
Well, I think it's always, where we're at now and where Fisher Creative is, it's always been the goal, but you don't always understand right away what the specific pieces are of that goal. You know, it's like the path has always been there, the vision has always been there. But ironically, you know, it's like the last year I've really spent trying to distill down what Fisher Creative really does, you know, what it is we do that's different, or what it is we do. And I think one, with Fisher Creative as a company, or the studio space, or the interactions with the community, it's like you can't do really cool things without true partnerships, without collaboration, without people coming together. It's like you and I, like it's not a one-man band, it's not a one-person show. You have to pull together people to create this unified vision. So one, it's bringing the team and the people together. And then two, yeah, I mean, Fisher Creative has always been about, yeah, we're making content, we're doing photos and video and media, we're storytellers. But really what we do is we take the people that are with us on a journey and we create a transformational experience. We create something that's different. Like we're like a full throttle brand, you know, we're not there to just passively enjoy the trip. No, we're going deep. We're taking our friends with us. We're taking our clients with us, because you have to sort of be open to that experience on a different level if you're going to get the most out of it. And I think that's one of the things that you and I share on these trips is like, you come away from every trip and every project as a slightly different person. You have an experience that's different, something unexpected, or maybe you push yourself slightly beyond that comfort zone, whether it's the food you eat, or whether it's the Druk 11,000 beer, or whether it's, you know, who knows what it is. But I think it's this desire to just experience something that's just a little bit off the beaten track, or a little bit different, and then embracing of the unknown.
Yeah. Wow. And I think you do it super well. And you know, we keep talking about this guy Ed or Eric. You know, he seems to be your right hand man. He's like, it always reminds me of Obelisk a little bit from Asterix, and I mean that in a nice way. He's like this huge, lovable bear that's super dependable. And you can't think about Mark Fisher without, to a certain extent, thinking about Ed. And Ed's up in Oban right now. I think he is. I mean, have you kicked him out?
Yeah, so yeah, Eric Daft, Ed, definitely, you know, he's a dear friend, one of my best friends. We've traveled the world together in the craziest places. He is co-founder of Fisher Creative, and he is just a super talented cinematographer, DP, director. He's a phenomenal editor. And Fisher Creative is part and parcel me and Eric, aka Ed. And, you know, together we are what really, you know, stands behind and creates the stories and the content we do. And, you know, back in the day, it was like 2000. I mean, Ed and I go back since 2008, 2009. And when
how did you guys meet? Because he was like a semi-pro snowboarder, was he not?
So, you know, Ed, you know, moved to Victor a year before I did. Yeah, really into snowboarding, really into mountain biking. Same reasons we all were there. And Ed was a cinematographer, and he was making kind of local films in my backyard. So kind of like rogue backyard filming, skiing, snowboarding, stuff like that. And so we became friends through skiing, through being in the backyard. And then when I started getting video assignments for companies, you know, like Columbia Sportswear or whatever, then one, I would sometimes hire Ed as a model, like a snowboard model. And then, you know, so we do these shoots, and Ed would wear these funny like Columbia clothes or whatever. And then when I started shooting video, I remember I went to Shishapangma in 2010, and I did this expedition. We tried to ski from the summit. We didn't make it all the way top. We made it to like 7,600 meters, but it was an Eddie Bauer trip. When they
so that must have been a really early Eddie Bauer mountain trip then.
Well, it was one of the first, when they first launched First Ascent.
Yeah.
Which is around 2009.
Yeah.
They were giving out expedition grants. So I applied for a grant to go climb and ski Shishapangma and went over there with 3 friends. And before the trip, you know, like I had just started shooting video like the year before. And so I'm like, Ed, I need a quick crash course in some of these video things. And, you know, Ed, you know, came over and you know, helped me out, gave me some tips on a couple things. And then, and that's really where it began, the working relationship from a video and a photo side. And so I came back from that Shishapangma trip, and Eric edited the video from the Shishapangma trip, and we worked really closely together on it. I had been building the old office that you've also seen in my old house. And I just, so that fall came back from Shishapangma, came back from, you know, we edited this video, and then I literally, you know, Ed and I, you know, we'd worked together. I'd hired him for a few jobs with Columbia and different things. And I just, you know, literally was Ed. I was like, I got this vision. I want to make a production company. I want you to be part of it. Let's do it. You know, I know we can make it work. And basically, you know, Ed believed in the vision. He believed in what we were doing, got on board then, and we've been together ever since.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, it's such a pleasure working with the two of you, because you're kind of, you're almost like yin and yang, and I mean it in a really nice way. Because, you know, I think perhaps a lot of the drive comes from you, or that's the way it seems, and then you have this super mild mannered dude in the background who's super proficient, has got an amazing work ethic, as you both do, and working with the two of you is always such a deep pleasure. I can't wait to get a project again up and running with you guys. Now, we can't have this conversation without talking a little bit. I remember the telephone call between you and I quite vividly. I remember ringing you up one day and saying that I've got a potential gig to go to Nepal to play a DJ set. And I remember you saying, oh, okay, well, yeah, explain a little bit about it. And I said, well, it's with a guy called Paul Oakenfold. And your exact words, and no fucking way, he's possibly my favorite DJ. I'm in. That was it. That was pretty much all you needed to know. And then that morphed what became known as, well, I suppose the Soundtrek Everest Base Camp experience, that, or the event, or whatever you want to call it. And that was probably the first time that you and I properly worked together, because I was really working the logistics. You were there with a big team, and then we had Paul Oakenfold, who needs very little introduction, the international electronic DJ. And I think the film that you guys produced, I've not seen the whole one, I've just seen the clips, was nothing short of brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. It summed up everything about that trip. And what we've never really spoken about is what that trip meant to you.
Yeah, no, I mean, like you said, I mean, I remember, I think I was maybe in Baja, Mexico when you called.
Yeah, you're always in such rough areas.
Well, I was randomly just with a bunch of dudes, bunch of guy friends. We were like free diving and, you know, scaring ourselves. But you gave me the call, and exactly like you said, those were my words. And because Paul, I mean, he's like the godfather of trance music. I mean, I grew up listening to his music. I love electronic music, and no, I was 100% in, and it was a phenomenal trip, and I think it was. I mean, we both obviously love Nepal, so any excuse to get over there. And yeah, to get a chance to work with Oakenfold and music and culture and travel, it was, and it was, you know, I think it's like we were saying, like every trip is somewhat life changing. Like you become, you're the sum of your experiences, you're the sum of your adventures and who you connect with and who influences you, and that very much, you know, that trip. Not only, yeah, I agree. I think the film was I'm really, really proud, really happy with how it turned out. You know, sort of like you look back and you have these points where it's a slight shift, you know, and it's just like your life takes a slightly different path because of an experience. And I think that was one of them. The crew we were with, kind of really putting everything into that project that we had in terms of, I mean, it was not an exceptionally well planned film from the beginning. You know, it's not like we went into it with, you know, a huge support and whatever, you know. I mean, we brought, you know, there were 5 of us on the film team, and we kind of went out there. We found Ranzin, who's an awesome DJ out of Kathmandu. You know, he came with us and, you know, really put the pieces together to make it a multifaceted, multidimensional, layered film. It wasn't just about the show at base camp. It was more, you know, the goal had always been to make it about music and the culture of Nepal and these experiences shared through music more than just doing the Everest Base Camp show. But no, it was a phenomenal film, and it was cool because, yeah, I mean, it you know, you and I and Ed working together with Oakenfold. I mean, and it's been great. You know, now I'm, you know, consider Paul a good friend as well. And he came out to Jackson 2 summers ago. We did the huge premiere in Jackson, which was epic, and you know, brought Paul Oakenfold to Jackson, Wyoming, and we had a sold out DJ show and a sold out movie premiere, and we flew out Ranzin from Kathmandu. And
oh, I didn't know that Ranzin came across.
We brought, you know, everyone. You were like on some trip somewhere. I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't know where. I was halfway up some snowy mountain somewhere.
Hey, you were engaged, but no. And I think it was really cool to just. And I think that's like, it's the full throttle approach. I mean, we're like, they're all from LA. They hadn't done a film premiere. And we're sitting there being like, what is going on? We made this amazing film with Paul Oakenfold. And for whatever reason, they've had a hard time selling it, you know, legal contracts, different deals, whatever. But we're like, Paul, and I remember I was like, Paul, we got to celebrate this film. You know, we got to show this film to some people. And I'm like, would you come out to Jackson and play a show and let us premiere it? And Paul was like, for sure. I mean, he came out for free, which is pretty cool to have, you know, really the godfather of trance who just believes in his project and wants to support the stoke of people watching it and music. And yeah, he came out to Jackson for free. And so we spent, you know, we had rented a 7-story penthouse apartment. You know, and it was really cool. And it was an amazing project.
It was a great project. And that was the first time, because the Bhutan trip, you know, we were working in conjunction, but I wasn't working that closely with you and Ed. But the Oakenfold trip, we were working quite closely, and that's when I first really saw the deep work ethic that you both have. I mean, the time lapses you were shooting, you know, some of the crew were up all night, almost every night shooting, and it went on and on and on, and totally inspired by the ability that the whole crew had, you know, Greg, you, Ed, etc., of continued hard work, yet being able to do it with, you know, a super high level of what you guys would call stoke. You know, you're always stoked, you're always smiling, and you know, some of the logistics were challenging. Let's say we had a challenging individual or two that we were having to deal with. Yet you guys managed all of that with a comparatively small team, working in very challenging environment, and produce a thing of wonder. I mean, the film is brilliant. So yeah, that really opened my eyes to how you guys go about doing your work. And yeah, it's phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
Thanks, buddy.
Now we need to rewind a little bit again, and I might get this wrong, but you learned your craft in Germany, did you not?
In part. I mean, I started photography way back in high school. So when I was, 13, 14, junior high, started photography then, black and white, rolling my own film, dark room, and then went to college, didn't study photography in college, but more, you'd call it more of a hobby, doing it on the side, trips, climbing, whatnot. But yeah, then I lived in Germany for a total of 3 years. and did spend a year working with a photographer in Freiburg. So yeah, that's when I really started shooting, large format film and medium format and studio and working on, and it was great and it was crazy. He was actually a British guy who had married a German woman, lived there for 30 years, and so we had the British Indian, the American, and we both spoke German. It was pretty funny. So we'd be bumping around with clients and going to Switzerland or Mexico or wherever. And no, he was a great guy. He is a great guy. Yeah.
Yeah. So this game, I remember you speaking once, and you broke into fluent German. You are fluent in German, aren't you? Which absolutely astounded me first time I heard it. Oh, wow, I had no idea. But then you grew up in somewhere out in the Far East, or you spent some.
Yeah, I grew up all over. My dad was an engineer, was a civil engineer, worked on transportation projects. So I graduated high school in Korea, and lived in Dubai in the 80s. When Dubai was literally nothing.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, but just lived in a bunch of places, and so I was fortunate to have a little bit international roots growing up. Malaysia, spent a bunch of time there.
And I wonder how much that sort of transient upbringing of living in different places for different amounts of time. I wonder how much that influences your lust for travel these days, because you travel more than I do, and I don't
know about that.
I travel a lot, but you eclipse my. The amount I travel. You guys are always on assignment somewhere.
Typically, it's funny though. It's like this is our first trip internationally in a long time.
Well, yeah, but that's because of lockdown and COVID and there's a global pandemic. I don't know if it reached Victor, but that's probably not been our travel.
Victor, we don't have COVID in Victor.
Yeah, but I saw a picture of Mark and not Mark, your Mark, Ed with his boys on the lift up at Taji, and they were having to wear masks on the lift.
Yeah,
a little bit. Extreme.
Well, it's funny. I mean, it's people are taking it pretty serious with mask wearing, and which is good because Jackson, we've got millions of tourists. I mean, you think the Scottish Highlands are busy with tourists in the summer, or the Cotswolds or whatever. It is packed in Jackson, and people coming from all over the world bringing COVID, and it's a small community, so people are taking it pretty serious. Except for
well, I think you have to. I mean, you got to be respectful and realistic with if we are as a society going to beat this pandemic, we've got to take the necessary precautions. It did strike me as a little bit, with the boys, they're all from the same family, sat on a chairlift in the open, and Ed was saying, you got to wear a mask on the chairlift, which anyway.
Well, who knows? I mean, the rules are made for the lowest common denominator.
Yeah, and they probably come from the sort of the very highest point of your sort of governmental, the big dog in Washington. So you can never quite be sure what he's going to say.
Yeah, exactly. No, but back to travel. I mean, no, it is true. It is. I'm fascinated by the world. I'm fascinated by different cultures. Food, religions, histories, perspectives on life. And no, it is something that has, literally, I moved to Dubai when I was in third grade. So I was 8 years old.
Yeah.
And it changed my life. I took Arabic lessons in third grade, and I was living in Dubai, and I came from this small Michigan town, and it did radically affect me. It's funny. I was raised Catholic,
I didn't know that.
Day. And I remember being in I remember, and I'm just sitting there like, how can, and not to get religious, but it's like, how can this person be, have a different life expectancy or afterlife or fulfillment in life just because they are a different culture, a different religion? And that literally is when the light bulb went off in my head about for me, how confusing Western views are, that we are the center of the universe, or that we have everything right and everyone else is wrong. And even at that age, I was like, no, this is different. Like, these are beautiful people that have completely unique lives, that are interesting, amazing people. And since then, I've sort of had the wanderlust. I've always just been fascinated by the travel. I mean, graduating high school changed my life, in Korea, and definitely put me on a path that was different than anyone I went to school with earlier. And so, no, I mean, a combination of, I think, the travels, but really being open to the travels and the experiences, have definitely kept me on this path. And and it is part of what I do. It's part of what we do at Fisher Creative. It's part of what I live for in life. You know, and, like, you have kids. I mean, it's like you come back and your travels inspire your kids, right?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, we've been here in the Alps now for a couple of weeks, and I took the children up to the Italian side of Mont Blanc yesterday, up onto the glacier. And we just went around on a glacial walk, and it's something that I do that for work, and I go to these amazing places, and for me, it's about sharing. I always want to share that experience with those super close to me, and I think perhaps that's, from listening to how you're speaking and knowing what you're like, because to me, Fisher Creative is this ability to share those experiences in a deep, impactful, meaningful way, and travel's at the very core of that.
100%. I mean, it's the same for you. Like, your clients that you take in the mountains or you take on trips, is your goal is not just to get them to the top. It's to create an experience, to share your life, to share this culture, to share in the experience, right?
No, totally. Now, while we're talking about experiences, this is, we probably haven't got time to delve into it too much. I don't even know what the name of the mountain was, but I don't actually know who was fully involved with it. I think you and Ed were, and you went down to Miramar to climb. Was it it's one of the highest unclimbed mountains.
Gambling Rossi. So the mountain's called Gambling Rossi.
And is that the same mountain that came to prominence about 2 years later with a big, well-funded North Face team? Or is that
so the full history. So Myanmar, it's a totally fascinating country. But my late dear friend Andy Tyson had been dreaming of this trip, to go climb Gambling Rossi, because on the northern tip of Myanmar, and we're talking on the Chinese border, way out there, super remote, there's a mountain called Kakabo Rossi that was apparently climbed in 1996 by Takashi Ozaki and Namar Johnson. Takashi Ozaki was this Japanese climber. He had gone to this part of Myanmar on 3 different expeditions with the attempt to climb Kakabo Rossi. Namar Johnson was a local dude from what they call the last village. And it's amazing. I mean, it's the northern part of Myanmar. So they're almost more Tibetan than they are what you would consider like a Myanmarese from Yangon or something. I mean, they're literally in the mountains, in the Himalayas, and very much Tibetan. So anyway, Namar Johnson, they apparently climbed it in 1996. Literally from 1996 to almost 2013, when we went over there, I mean, there had been a few Westerners in this area. And there's a famous researcher who wrote a book called Beyond the Last Village, and I'm totally spacing his name, but he had done some trips there, but basically a completely unknown part of the world. And my buddy Andy had worked to try and put an expedition together over there. He serendipitously connected with the Myanmar like Climbing and Mountaineering Association, whose major funder was the notorious gangster Ute Za. Now, I say that in the nicest way. I mean, Ute Za, let's just call him he's a businessman who was for a long time under sanction with the West for whatever illicit practices he had been charged with. But either way, he was an armchair mountaineer. He wanted to fund what we became known as the Myanmar American Friendship Expedition. So he basically paid for us and handled the bureaucratic red tape, because it's really difficult to travel in Myanmar. And so he was able to secure the access and the permits to go to places that we went to. And so yeah, it was myself, it was Eric, it was Andy Tyson, who unfortunately died in a plane crash right after our trip to Bhutan. His wife, Molly, and another guy, Chris Nance. And then we were with 2 Myanmar climbers from the university and a whole team. And what became one of probably the craziest expedition I've ever been on. It was so rugged. And we hiked 175 miles one way just to get to base camp through, I mean, you're talking so remote, no access. The weather was shitty every day. It was raining every day. I mean, slippery. You wouldn't even call them trails. They're like footpaths that go up and down and up and down. And it's like roots and slippery. It was, cobras, vipers, bees, leeches. I mean, it was fully out there. I mean, we were staying in villages, no power, bamboo stilted huts. One village, I think the population was 48 people the previous year. They said 18 had died from cobra bites. Oh. We saw polio in there. They had the last remaining members of the Turan population, which is this midget kind of pygmy population. And there's literally like 2 or 3 of them left in the world. Like we went through that village, which was very near the end of the trail. I mean, just absolutely fascinating to go there. And we were literally some of the first Westerners that had been in there in a long time. And I think all told, there were very, very few people had ever been in there. So it was really special. It was really rugged. It was really remote. And the big mystery of the climb that we wanted to solve was which is the highest peak in Southeast Asia, because the only peak that's ever been climbed is Kakabo Razi. Mm-hmm. Me personally, I don't necessarily think Kakabo Razi has been climbed. Maybe it has, maybe it hasn't, but there's no definitive photos from the summit. That's for sure. Kakabo Razi, that's the peak to climb, but Gambling Razi is right next to it. Mm-hmm. And when you look at it from maps and different images, it's very, very close in height. I mean, we're talking at most, there's a couple 100 meters of difference in height between the two. And so we went over there with a super accurate GPS with a desire to measure the summit of Gambling Razi. And we did. We were successful. We climbed Gambling Razi. We took a measurement from the summit. We determined its height. And it got a lot of press in Myanmar. And it was just, it was one of those expeditions that is definitely type 2 fun. It was not that much fun when you're out there. Looking back on it, it was a lot of fun. But it was more like that was, the trip you'll tell your kids around the fire and your grandkids and that kind of expedition.
No, but I've certainly heard some stories coming out from you about like huge pieces of jade and that
it's just wild,
just the funders just has on his table, and it sounded like an amazing trip. I mean, the jungle sounded horrendous.
It was horrendous. Yeah.
I mean, that sounded like the crux of the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, people are like, oh, jungle's nice and it's whatever. It is so awful. I mean, we all had just blisters and oozing wounds and swollen bodies and just the torture on your body because we were walking, I don't know, 15, 20 miles a day, but you're completely soaked the entire time. We didn't bring enough food, so we relied on them to cook food. So we're literally losing. We didn't bring bars and chocolate and snacks. We were just eating rice and chopped up chicken bits from the village and little ferns they would pick on the thing, and it was great, but we definitely didn't have enough food. And then it was, but it was phenomenal. It was truly on all levels. And like you said, the relationship with Teza, we went back to Myanmar a couple times, 10 million euro pieces of jade. You'd go to his house and there'd be baby tigers and, hello. Yeah, I'm in here. Okay. And, baby tigers, whatever. And
It's a big guy.
Ed, what's up? Ken.
The key.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
We're talking about Myanmar.
We invaded your country.
But no, it's Scotland. I mean, there is some form of technicality going on there.
Something like that. But we're talking about Myanmar.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. But baby tigers and the whole thing was crazy. We took our kids over there. We went and hung out with took our kids.
I didn't know that. Yeah, I didn't know you'd been across there with the children.
Teza was actually quite gracious. He flew Ed and I over there. We both took our kids, and it was great. But no, the interesting thing was, you're right. The year later, a big North Face team that was funded by National Geographic and the North Face, really, prominent athletes from the North Face, they went over there with the intention to climb Kakabo and ski it, and they were like, and they literally went into the trip completely cavalier about like, oh yeah, we're gonna go climb Kakabo, we're gonna go climb Gamling, we're gonna ski it, we're gonna do all this stuff. Kind of like, they're like, how hard can it be? It's like a 19,000 foot peak or whatever. I think it was like 9, and literally got their asses handed to them. The group fully fell apart, complete dysfunction, because it's incredibly challenging conditions to operate in. And I think it was a little bit, we didn't get any publicity from our trip because we're a bunch of hicks from Idaho, but they did get a lot of press, and it was sort of satisfying in a little bit of a way of like, oh, it actually is a legit expedition. It may not be the highest peaks in the Himalayas, but they're completely out there and remote, and just, you don't have that many expeditions where getting there is the hardest part, and just the travel. So anyway, it's a cool, we're gonna have to go back there. I still sort of masochistically want to go back and try and climb Kakabo Razi.
I might be washing my hair for that trip.
We need you, Ken.
The stories of the jungle have put me off, but it's interesting. You mentioned Nat Geo in there, and certainly it was. You watch it in the UK a couple of weeks ago, and maybe some of the viewers or listeners haven't put the two and two together. But Nat Geo had quite a high or a well promoted program story about Everest 3-4 weeks ago, and Fisher Creative were the creators of that program, weren't they? You were on Everest last year, same time that I was, and you and Ed were filming for Nat Geo a scientific based program on Everest. It was data gathering of glaciers and black carbon on the glaciers, and installing a weather station at 8,000 meters, and it was a fairly bullish expedition in terms of what they were trying to do, and you were at the very center of it. You had who else did you have across? You had a
so we had you're right. We were National Geographic's Perpetual Planet Life at the Extremes expedition, which is cool. I didn't even know.
That's quite a mouthful. The Nat Geo's Perpetual Planet Life at the Extremes.
Exactly. Well, it is a tongue twister. It's a mouthful, but it is a phenomenal scientific climate change expedition funded by Rolex. So Rolex funded the whole expedition, with the goal that they were going to create the most comprehensive scientific study ever performed on Everest. And to do so, they brought out this multifaceted team of international scientists led by Dr. Paul Majewski, who's the director of the Climate Change Institute at the University of Maine. Phenomenal guy. He was the sort of scientific expedition leader. I mean, this guy's been going to the Antarctic since the 60s. I mean, just the wealth of knowledge he has from climate change is truly just stunning. And then they brought together everything from weather stations to ice core samples, to water samples, biology, botany, glaciology, drone mapping, lake water, it was, I think in all told, there were over 40 scientists.
Wow.
They partnered with Tribhuvan University from Kathmandu. And we did. We put the highest weather station on Earth at 8,400 meters at the balcony. We, they took an ice core from the South Pole, highest ice core ever taken. And, the data is coming out and it's part of this larger goal of you have, the highest place, the most extreme. They have another part of it that they're trying to do in the oceans. And then you kind of have the rainforest. So these three major regions with the goal that if you really understand what's happening at the extremes and as it relates to climate change, because, climate change has the biggest impacts at the extremes, whether it's the hottest areas, the coldest areas, the coastal areas, the places where you're barely above sea level. That's where the effects of climate change are most pronounced. And in some ways, you can learn the most about understanding the past and predicting the future. So it was cool. And no one had ever done that level of quality scientific research on Everest. And so I got hired. Actually, Conrad Anker made the connection, our mutual friend Conrad.
When we had Conrad on the show, we were talking about it and he was singing your praises.
Conrad. What a phenomenal guy Conrad is, though.
Off the charts.
Just such a good. And so Conrad, he linked me up, and he was supposed to be the expedition lead on that. He had some health problems, complications shortly before the trip, and so Pete Athens replaced Conrad, kind of as the climbing logistics director based out of base camp. Pete's a great guy as well, super experienced mountaineer. But Mr. Creative came on to basically be the media team of record to document the story for National Geographic.
Seems I lost Mark. You still there, Mark?
And Rolex. So huge, huge. Did you get me?
Yeah.
It's an unstable internet connection again.
There we are. You're back again. Yeah,
good.
You're putting full Technicolor.
But no, it's phenomenal to be part of the project. Huge honor. So Eric and I, we hired our good friends Dirk Collins and Brittany Muma. They worked with us, and then Nat Geo had a couple guys in-house that came more on the producing side for the project. And then we put together. It was a long trip. It was like 8.5 weeks.
Yeah, you were there a long time. I mean, I dropped in and out, and I remember coming around for the odd beer and things to eat in your tent. You had your little production tent there, just down from where we were. And it's always good to come across to see you guys sort of hanging out there and working hard. We've lost Mark again.
Well, I'm always very jealous of your approach, Kenton. Oh, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you back. Yeah, this is the danger of working remotely. So you're in Scotland. I'm in the French Alps, and we're trying to come through Cirencester.
But no, it's cool. So what are you up to today with the family, Kenton? What's happening? Tell me about your trip.
Yeah, well, this is the last day. We drive back tomorrow. So we came across, like you guys, we've been in lockdown for a long time, and decided we have a bit of an adventurous holiday, come across and done all sorts of things with the children, wild swimming, hiking, rock climbing, beer ferrata, up on the glacier, mountain biking, just hanging. Yeah, so it's been a phenomenal sort of couple of weeks out here. But we head back tomorrow, back to the UK, and head down and try and work out how the business all moves forward after COVID, which has always been quite challenging with the loss of the Everest expedition and the K2 expedition and Alaska. That's all crumbled for obvious reasons, and it's trying to put things in place whereby we can try and recoup some of the sort of loss of earnings and loss of expeditions. But it's difficult, in the same way that you guys are experiencing it. We don't know exactly what's happening with travel, and Can we travel to Nepal? Nepal's open, but then they're getting their second spike. And, well, not even the second spike, they're still on the first spike. So there's lots of complications with everything. But certainly the family holiday's been awesome.
That's good. Yeah.
Lots of running and fitness and really good food and just hanging and hanging with the family, which is just beautiful.
You got a beautiful family. It's got to be fun hanging with them in the mountains, and it's
it's good. And perhaps some of it's been arguably more meaningful for me because I'm taking them to places that I love and I work in, and I'm like, wow, guys, and they're like, yeah, whatever.
I mean, but isn't that so cool? Like the kids are at such a good age for just showing them truly life-changing things and just
it's phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. And then just to see it, to expose them to different things. It's like you were saying earlier about the travel. I think it's so important that, and you hit on it at an early age. And we think that the Western society is the center and we're always right. And the only way that you learn that perhaps that's not true is by travel and being open to different cultures and religions and ways of being. And that comes from experience. And that's what we're trying to do a little bit with the children. Okay, France might not be Myanmar or Korea, but it's different. And there's different things you can do here, different experiences, different adventures. And I just think it's really important to expose the children to as much as possible so that they learn.
Well, 100%. And I think, it's funny, one of the real blessings of COVID, and I'm sure you felt it too, is that it's the amount of time to have just quality time with the family, to be, doing more adventures with the kids, to have, like for me, it's been sort of the huge blessing, the unexpected blessing of not traveling as much, of being around home more, and then taking them on adventures and just having those. So it's cool to see you guys out there.
I mean, our two still talk about the river drift that we all did together. So for the listeners, there's three families, Ed and family, you and your two children and our families all came together and did this epic, a 2-day little river drift last year out of your house or out of your home, and my two children still talk very fondly about that. Although Willoughby gets upset he didn't catch any fish. So listen, I always have troubles bringing these home. I mean, I love you to bits. We could talk all day long. But the last thing that I really want to talk about again is Everest Base. And I don't know how many of the viewers, listeners know, but you were the cameraman that captured all the unreal, and I'm truly mean it, unreal footage on Everest when I was there with Ben Fogle. And of course the CNN production, which then went out in the UK sort of through ITV, a 2-3 part series of Ben Fogle's dream of climbing Everest. And you were the guy that you were working on as a cameraman. And I think I was chatting to one of the CNN producers who said that you were the only one there. And Neil said that you captured, I think it was 127 hours of video footage. How? Just how did you do that on your own?
That was a good trip, Ken. That was a phenomenal trip. How did I do that? Well, I don't know. I remember we were talking about it for months and months.
Yeah.
Going to that trip, and which was just great because I mean, the fact that you always, believe in me and Fisher Creative and push to work together means a lot. It's cool and super appreciated. And I mean, not only is it fun hanging out with you, but no, it's great. And it was literally like Ben Fogle's trip, and then it didn't happen, and they couldn't get the funding or something was going on, and I mean, it was literally like 2 weeks before the trip, and I was in Moab with my family, mountain biking and camping, and I get this call. It was like the day before I left for Moab, and it was Ben Fogle. He's like, Mark, you probably hate me, but would you still want to come to Everest? And I kind of like Oakenfold. I said, for sure. let's do this. But I literally had 2 weeks lead time to shift gears, plan for an Everest expedition. Never had been on Everest before. Didn't own a down suit. And yeah, I was I did everything. I did the sound, the offloading, the shooting, the cleaning, the photos, the video. And it was, yeah, with Victoria Pendleton, and it was phenomenal. But yeah, how did I do it? I don't know. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. But
go on.
I said it's a lot of work, but I love what I do, and I love, and everyone at Fisher Creative loves what we do. And so it's not work when you're passionate about, the work ethic and telling a compelling story and trying to do, it's like you look at it, the flip side is like, how many opportunities do people get to go get paid to climb Everest? It's like, yeah, why wouldn't I work really hard to make something cool? It's, it was a phenomenal trip.
No, it was epic. And I think one of the reasons why it was so epic, and we keep talking about your ability to create fun, no matter what's going on. And you were certainly a huge positive influence on that expedition. And to then finally stand on a summit together. I think most people, we've had Victoria on the show, so most of the listeners probably have heard her story. And if you haven't, go check out her own story from Everest. But she didn't make the summit, but you and myself and Ben, I think it was May 15 or 16, we stood on a summit together. You filmed the whole thing, including the oxygen delivery system failures, because we lost a lot of oxygen that day because the regulators were failing. Yet you were totally unflappable all the way through, and then stepped up to the plate. Not only were you filming, but then you took over a role of essentially guiding, of looking after Ben when I took off my own oxygen delivery system and gave it to Ben. So I couldn't look after Ben. So you are now looking after Ben. And it was just, it was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. And I don't think I've ever really thanked you for being part of that. It was fantastic. It was one of the fondest Everest trips I've done. And that was predominantly down to you, I think.
No, well, thank you. I mean, I could say the same thing right back at you for just the atmosphere you create and the way you interact with people and what you, it goes both ways, Kenton. It's like, it's not it's like right back at you in terms of what you bring to your clients, the experiences you create for them. I think that's why I've always just loved your approach too, with just the really intimate one-on-one guiding that really is invested in the people you're with. And it's, it's like you're invested in the Sherpas and your friendship with them. And whatever, seeing you, and how many years have you been to Nepal? 17 years in a row, 20 years in a row.
Something like that. Yeah. You mentioned Pete Athens earlier, and his nickname is Mr. Everest. I need to steal that title.
Well, exactly. And I think it goes right back at you, just seeing, the depth of your experience and the relationship and the respect you have with the Sherpas. And it was cool. The whole thing was mind blowing. So, and I think, back.
It was really cool. Now we do have to land is I've got 2 children over there that want to go out and do adventures, and you've got to do a load of planning for your upcoming trip. So we're going to see you down in Cirencester. So we planned all this before I knew you were going to be in Cirencester. Otherwise, we could have done it in a theatre. So we know what you're doing right now. You're doing an epic series about sort of hunting and cooking and a whole melange thing with a relatively new startup brand. But what else is on the radar for Fisher Creative? What's the short to medium term vision over the next couple of years?
Oh yeah, what is the short? We're working with this great new apparel brand, and with them we've got we'll see what happens with travel, but similar shows in places like Azerbaijan, Spain, New Zealand. So that's really exciting there. Working with our friends, our mutual friend, Michael Barth out of Hong Kong, do a lot of work with the Explorers Club, Hong Kong chapter. So, really exciting stuff there. we're partnering with Michael's new company called Voyager, really exciting VR, AR, 360 content, bringing that down. We've got, bunch of, you and I are trying to do some exciting projects.
Fingers crossed.
In the future. Yeah. So, I mean, that is incredibly exciting to bring those to life. And, actually working, trying to put together a project with Victoria involving motorcycles and philanthropy and adventure throughout the world. So, really working hard on that. We've got another Paul Oakenfold project that we're trying to push in Antarctica.
Cool.
Which, so we'll see. I mean, like all of us, it's a big unknown right now.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of unknown, and I think all we can do is focus on what we know and what we can do. And I think that's one of the reasons why yourself and Ed and Fisher Creative have been so amazing. I mean, you control what you do well, and you do it extremely well, and that's why the end results, your films, your shorts, your adverts, working with brands like Black Diamond or Versa Center, or whoever it may be, they're just phenomenal. Your ability to create content is second to none.
Well, thanks, buddy. You're too kind, but I appreciate it.
Now, just before I let you go, where can we find you? Because on your website, viewers, listeners, they can find quite a lot of the films, can't they?
Yeah. Go fishercreative.com. That's the site. We're notoriously overworked and understaffed, so we tend to get a bit behind on content delivery. We're not the most passionate social media folks, but we're, Kenton, you're always reminding us to get better at that.
Yeah. Well, with my place on the board of Fisher Creative that you keep,
exactly.
I keep pushing the whole, come on, guys, you got this killer, sick content. Yeah. Let's get it out on social media. But your website is a good portal, isn't it? Go to the Fisher Creative website, and there's some really cool, and I mean really cool stuff on there.
Thanks, brother. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Right. Now, listen, I could talk to you all day. We're going to land it right there. I hope the viewers really dig it. They can find you are on social media yourself.
Yeah, just Fisher Creative, Instagram. That's a good place to start. Fisher Creative on Instagram.
And then you're running around the UK for the next couple of weeks, and I think
we'll be here all month. We're going to see you. We're going to see you in a couple of days.
Yeah, I might come up to Scotland, but you're definitely coming down to Cirencester, and we'll catch up there for sure. So I really appreciate your time. I know the viewers and the listeners do. So from all of us at Cool Conversations, just like I say, thanks for your time. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate what you do in terms of generating content and pushing it out there. And we really, really appreciate the fact that your stoke is always high and you're always looking for fun.
Well, Kenton, thanks so much for having me. It's been a true pleasure. You're one of the rare gems of humankind out there. So really, really appreciate the friendship and the connection. And thanks for having me on here. Give your family a hug for me.
Will do. Cheers,
all right,
man.
Take care, brother. Yeah, bye. Thank you. Ciao.
Well, that was Mark Fisher. What a guy. I mean, honestly, what a guy. We do love him for bits. He's been let loose in the UK for the next couple of weeks, so I have no idea what's going to go, because those guys, they burn the candle at both ends. They know how to party, but at the same time, they know how to really, really properly work. Once again, from me, is a huge thank you for tuning in to hear the words of wisdom from Mark there. We will be back next week. We'll be back in the Barn Theatre next week in Cirencester. So from me, Kenton Cool, thank you so much for the continued support that you have. Do hit us up. Let us know what you think of the show, how we can improve, who you would like to see on the show. But until I do hear from you, be safe, be cool, and we see you same place, same time next week on Cool Conversations.